Presented by Edge Radio.
Hello and welcome to Media Shower with your hosts, Lochie and Qom.
How you doing today, Lochie?
Well, I guess I could say for myself, same as always, sleep insomnia, but what's new, am I right?
Yeah. Watching too many movies, that's the issue. Or not enough.
Yeah, I think it's not enough, really, but apparently my body says otherwise. So, today we'll be doing a more recent review, if you will. This one we'll be talking about Cocaine Bear.
Yeah, it's both rewatched it last night. I'd seen it once
sequel.
before on a flight. I fell asleep the first time, so it doesn't quite count. It's released in 2023, and the title kind of explains itself. It's a bear on cocaine. What do you think, Lockie? First impressions?
First impressions, I was more or less wanting to see, well, you know, a coked up bear do a coked up bear things. Which, of course, it did deliver, but I felt like they wanted to do too many things, but couldn't find a middle ground. Or at least I think they did, but maybe I just couldn't see it.
Yeah, it follows lots of characters throughout that kind of link up. There's not just an A and B story. There's like an A, B, C, and D story.
Which all
maybe even more than that.
coincidentally linked up together.
Yeah, I thought they'd tie in nicely, but it did get a little confusing. It almost felt like an anthology. One story would stop, it would link up to another, and you just wouldn't see those characters again for bear-related reasons.
Well, it was just more or less confusing on the tone of where it wanted to go. Like, did it want to go as a suspense horror? Did it want to go to a family comedy movie? Like, that type of trope. Like, It was very confusing on what the theming of the movie is. Like, a few times you get an element of horror. Sometimes you get bits of comedy. Sometimes
It was
a bit of the drama.
It was weird that they did tie it almost to a family horror or a family theme. They had a criminal type theme in there as well. It essentially opens with a drug smuggler. He throws his cocaine out of his plane before it crashes, or before he jumps out and injures himself. This part is true. There was a famous drug smuggler who did this in the 80s, Andrew Thornton, I believe his name is. And that's who they reference in the movie. And a bear found this cocaine, it ate it. That's kind of where the truth stops, though. There's
The rest of it is up for speculation and moviegoers to go nuts, I suppose.
Yeah. They found the bear dead and it had traces of cocaine in its body. There's not really... No one has any idea what the results were between eating it and death.
And probably no one will ever know.
Yeah. You had to be there, that's what some would say.
If not, then you just have to let your imaginations run wild. Clearly, Hollywood want that trope, that's for sure.
Yeah, so it follows first an Icelandic tourist, I believe, in the forest when the bear's there. Then it follows a family, a couple kids. It follows a police chief and one of his lieutenants. It follows the rangers. It also follows... This may sound confusing, and it's because it is. It also follows criminals trying to get the drugs back. And it's the final one. I think that's about it.
One of them, funnily enough, being played by O'Shea Jackson Jr., aka Ice Cube's son, which was a surprise for me, and probably, in my opinion, besides another actor, I forget his name, I thought he was the charm of the movie.
Yeah, I thought he was good. He had some good one-liners. It was a funny movie at moments. But yeah, I thought he was one of the highlights, absolutely. And he kind of seemed like the normal, everyday man that we can relate to in this film. Not quite the main protagonist, because this movie doesn't really have one.
No, I guess you got Elizabeth Banks's character as the main character, but I wouldn't count her necessarily.
I don't think it was Elizabeth Banks. Do you mean the mum?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it was Elizabeth Banks. Maybe I'm wrong. But
Yeah, I could be wrong on that.
yeah, she was okay. Maybe it was Elizabeth Banks. I didn't realize. I know Elizabeth Banks directed the movie. She did like Pitch Perfect and a few other movies.
Along with
She also does like
Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, which was interesting.
yeah, she features in movies as well as an actress. The whole thing was filmed in Ireland, interesting enough.
The state of America.
I suppose the whole country is one big forest, really. I'm sorry to our Irish listeners. But yeah, the other actor who I think he indicated to was Ray Liotta. And Ray Liotta died not very long after this film, so it's kind of interesting to think that, you know, such a big actor back in the day, the 90s.
And
I
this
think it
is
was
his last
Goodfellas, yeah, and Cocaine Bear. And him playing an over-the-top villain is one of his last movies. Poor fella. Having that at the end of your filmography maybe isn't the greatest thing. I don't know. It was an alright movie. It was... I would say it's a guilty pleasure. How about that?
Yeah, it's got that very guilty-esque pleasure feel. Sometimes, if it's like the one-liners, certain scenes and whatnot. Yeah, it almost felt like the trope of an early 2000s comedy movie. But yet if it was reworked in the 2020s, of course.
Yeah. It does have that feel of kind of early comedy movies, absolutely. I thought the script was well. I got lots of jokes out of it. I don't know if I watched it by myself or if I would enjoy it. I watched it with a friend, and it was easy to look at each other and say, you know, what a ridiculous plot, what a ridiculous line, that it becomes funny. It's like almost so bad it's funny.
Yeah, because when I was watching this movie by myself, I was just questioning every little miraculous detail, every fault I could find. And then here I bring one of my friends down to watch it, and I'm just half the time I'm either forgetting about it because I'm just focusing on him with the laughs or seeing what he finds funny.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't know, it's interesting in a way.
I did think it started slow.
Yeah, that's something that I couldn't put into the top of my head. It did have a slow start.
It's about probably the first third I thought, this is just boring. And then it's introduced, that's the issue, because it's got 5 or 6 different stories in it. So they're introducing every story for the first third of the movie, introducing those characters, and really not going anywhere with them. And they tie it in the last 2/3. Tie it in nicely. But I noticed even things like the violence. So you have a bear running around the forest on cocaine killing people. But the first couple of deaths they don't show, and they kind of increase the amount that they show.
Yeah, they do.
With
increase.
every death. Yeah, I don't think they show... He goes after the tourists at the start. You don't even see it, you just hear it. And I thought, we're going to miss out on all this gore.
And then we miss the local forest lover.
Yeah. You kind of see...
Later on.
You see the end of it. You see the result of the violence. But you don't actually see the attack. And then by the end of the movie...
It's then we actually get to see a full-scale attack.
You're saying
and, of course, it only happens to the villain, just because we mustn't hate bad guy, because he bad guy. No sympathy.
Yeah. It's weird at the... Okay, so... I like that you've touched on that. Because they have this criminal, played by Ray Liotta, who's the villain, quote unquote.
Quote unquote, yes.
But the bear is made out to be a hero and made out as a sympathetic character.
If you will.
Yeah, who saves a family from Ray Liotta. But we've just witnessed this bear
Murdering
about-
people. So
Yeah,
it's like, you're no saint.
yeah, he kills about 20 people probably. And then all of a sudden, oh, well, we got to feel sorry for the bear, you know. That's the true emotional crutch of this movie. I don't feel sorry for a bear that's killed 20 people. It would,
And they're trying to milk that ideology even more by bringing the idea of it being a mum and, of course, having cubs.
yeah.
It's like, don't you feel bad for him? Don't you feel bad for her?
It was just very forced. I mean, this is not a movie you're meant to teach a moral lesson about the...
Yeah, I didn't come here to learn my
environment or
morals
anything
or
on-
anything. I wanted to watch a coked up bear rip up people and, you know, all that violent goodiness.
And it just felt worse as well because it was like kind of just forced in the last 5 or 10 minutes. Like really the conclusion, it's not working up to any of this. And then they're just like, oh, bam, now the bear's a hero and he actually wants to save people. No, he doesn't. It was just very ludicrous, I thought, to kind of conclude in that way. And I think that was the big issue. This movie didn't know what it wanted to do.
It did not.
It's a movie that they should have leaned into the violence more, I think, the gore more. And the comedy more as well. It should have been a dark comedy in every way. And there shouldn't be a moral lesson apart. The moral lesson is don't feed a bear cocaine. That's the moral
That should
lesson.
be the only immoral lesson that you get out. You should get out of a movie called Cocaine Bear. Like, come on, Hollywood.
Yeah.
If I wanted to learn a moral or teach a valuable lesson about society, I'd go watch a superhero movie or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know why that was in there at all. And I think maybe, and there was a little bit of this, you go, okay, the major plot point to this movie is a bear on coke. How can we make a story out of this? But like I said, it should have almost been like a Saw, but for bears. Something like that. Something that's just so ludicrous. And just lean on that. And lots of violence. Lots of comedy. It should have been a parody of...
What 2000s movies tropes could have been.
What I thought maybe almost like Evil Dead or something like that. Where a whole bunch of friends go into the woods.
And I could have played on the whole Evil Dead parody, like, horror trope.
Yeah, I thought maybe a whole bunch of friends and campers go into the woods and they literally look at the camera and they say, no, we better not split up. Something dumb like that. Have the whole movie just gimmicks, horror gimmicks.
Yeah, just your basic horror gimmicks flipped on their head, really.
Yeah. I think it would have worked. And I think the audience for this movie, that's what they were looking for.
Yeah.
I saw it memed online a lot when it came out. And I was excited when it came out. I thought, this movie looks so just insane that it's going to be brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's where the decision making and the marketing came in for the movie.
It's
Because it was like, well, hey guys, look at this ludicrous, crazy ass movie that you've got everything else that's all serious and everything, like big major blockbusters, and here's just something that's full of goofs.
Yeah, it really is like a living meme. Just the idea of it is like, oh, that's pretty, that's wild. Okay,
Pretty bonkers.
Yeah, pretty bonkers, brother. But terrible. Not terrible, but it just wasn't executed to where it could have been. The quality, the standard. I would give this movie maybe like a 6 or a 7, I think. It was watchable. I got some good laughs out of it. I think I said earlier, it's a little bit of a guilty pleasure. But there almost felt like there's no artistic integrity over the whole thing. And there doesn't have to be, but it felt like they were trying to do that.
It's funny that you pointed that out specifically because being on the subject of them being confused of what they want the movie to be, I was hoping it would have gone down the O'Shea Jackson and, excuse me for pronouncing this wrong, Ray Liotta.
Ray Liotta.
Thank you.
That's right. We'll
Totally
get you to watch
butchered that one.
Goodfellas. You'll never forget.
Yeah, I'll probably never. And I was hoping it would go down more that route of the storyline where a bunch of guys have to recover the previous drugs from their boss.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then even higher ups in the gang will come after them and their families and everything.
Yeah.
And O'Shea Jackson and I can't remember who the other actor was.
The other guy's in Solo, a Star Wars story.
Oh, okay, well, I don't know who he is, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. I don't know his name either, but that's the only thing I know him from. He plays Han Solo.
Oh, well, there you go.
From Han Solo to Cocaine Bear.
No, that's a title
This had
I
some
wanna
good
see.
actors in it. That's what's funny as well.
Cocaine Wookie.
Cocaine Wookie. Oh, that's a good sequel. Yeah, I agree. Maybe if it followed a couple characters like that, it would have been better. I really like the Ranger character, the larger lady.
Yeah, even still keep her around. I thought she was a blast.
She was a highlight. She was the diamond in the crown.
She was like, how do we say this? Basically, she's in love with this guy who is deeply in love with the forest and cares everything about it. And legitimately takes the role model of Smokey Bear and believes that even the slightest cigarette ash can cause a major forest fire. Which, yeah, it can be true, but it's a little, unlikely.
Yeah.
But then again, she tries everything to be like the most purest person ever, where she's just there trying to bum off cigarettes and whatnot.
Yeah. And when she kind of loses her mind a little bit.
When the bear does show up.
Yeah. And she's like threatening the bear with a gun. She's threatening all these other people with a gun. She was great. I have no idea only thing I've ever seen her in.
Yeah, I'm not sure who the actress was, but even she, I thought, was good.
She needs an entire movie herself. Call it I don't
The
know.
Lazy Park Ranger.
Yeah, the Lazy Park Ranger. And she's a gun-wielding ranger. Keeping the forest in line.
I would have been to Yellowstone if it weren't for you little guys.
She was brilliant. And she's in there's two, thinking about the visuals and the audio. I'll ask you first, and I'll say my two favourite. And there's kind of an issue here. Was there any video or audio that you thought, this is really memorable, these scenes? That this is like, someone has tried to do something amazing here?
Not really, but for the sake of comedy purposes, I'm just going to say when the detective rips off one of the Manny Coke bags that makes it rain on the bear.
You know what? That is a good scene, actually.
Just a slow motion CGI bear just loving getting high on Coke.
I agree. Actually, I didn't have that in mind, but now you say it, that was a beautiful scene. It raining this powder and this giant bear dancing under it. There were two interesting scenes, I thought. But first I'll say, this is what the movie lacked. It's very bare minimum on... It's decent enough writing. It's decent enough comedy throughout. The violence is pretty good, especially gets better, as we go along. But there is... Just the video and audio was so basic that I kind of thought, this feels... Where's the care? Where's the love? Every scene should be meticulously planned out and should be amazing. And it almost felt like a straight-to-TV movie, if that makes sense. Someone just said, roll cameras, action.
It did feel like a straight-to-TV movie with certain visuals and CGI CGI fast tracking scenes. It did feel a bit like that. Like some bits felt either off or choppy.
Yeah, even the color palette, little things like that. I just thought this is a kind of a basic bare minimum movie.
It wasn't. Yeah, it's not offensive or bad. It's just bland. Really, it's like the most bland Hollywood color palettes you could possibly think of. Like your greens, your blues, and your browns and your greys
It's what we expect.
in a movie. Isn't it? Almost the safest thing you could put in a movie for a color palette.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't even say necessarily bland. It was just safe. Everything was
safe.
done safe. But now I'm going to completely change loop round on this. There were 3 good, amazing scenes I thought in the movie. 4 now you've mentioned him sprinkling cocaine, the chief. The first one was O'Shea Jackson is in the telephone box and they're filming upwards underneath.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit funny.
And for some reason I just thought, wow, that's a nice... If you were ever to film in a telephone box, do it from the floor looking up. It looks cool.
And especially from the angle they were doing it from, I thought it was a little funny as well.
Yeah. It was
it's
just...
such a...
It caught my attention.
Because to me, I see it as like, it's such a camera angle that not many people in Hollywood use when using like a phone booth. So I thought, well, this is a bit of an odd stick in the mud.
Yeah. Take notes. When I film our great Hollywood blockbuster, I'll be including a scene like that somewhere. Just to show we can film from the floor up. It looks good. It's a reverse bird's eye view. There's probably a word for it. I got no idea. If a bird's eye view is from the top, this is a worm's eye view.
Yep, that
Sounds good, eh?
probably the best way to
Awesome.
say it, really.
And the second best scene, I thought... Well, I won't say second best scene, but another brilliant scene is when the ambulance shows up.
Yeah.
And it's like... I don't know if it's a continuous shot, but it kind of feels like that. They're driving this ambulance away from the bear that's chasing them down. And it's essentially a car chase between a bear and an ambulance.
That's trying to get away desperately with their lives.
And they're just screaming hilarious things as it's all going on. I felt the intensity of that. It was good.
Yeah, even you felt the intensity of their scaredness, like, oh my god, this is the end, type thing. Like, you feel that within them.
Yeah, you feel... You're absolutely right. They capture it perfectly. You feel scared like them. You feel very fearful. And the last one was... Bear climbs a tree, kills the guy in a tree.
Oh, yeah.
And, and they cut away so you can't really see him. And then you just see this body
he just falls
drop.
down and the leg comes later. And it's just like... And then...
Yeah. 2 drops. This guy falls out and then his leg follows. And I thought that was a nice looking scene.
Boom, boom, boom. And the bear does his victory roar and snorts a line. You know how you go.
Yeah. So like I said, I mean, the video throughout is pretty stock standard. But they were like, those scenes, I was like, man, they are brilliant. It should have been more of that. Just like interesting twists on it.
Yeah, because
they captured my imagination.
Because you would assume that from that scene, as a first-time watcher, you think, oh, the bear's going to go for that little boy. But as soon as he smells the coke that was on the forest lover that he accidentally tripped on, he immediately changes courses of who's the target. And like, you've got coke? Mine.
I did think that was done kind of well. It doesn't keep consistency. But the bear he's essentially a drug addict now. That's why he's so aggressive. It's because he has coke and then he's like coming down. So he's becoming
almost
more...
every 15 minutes in his time?
Yeah, something like that. And so he's not necessarily a crazy murderer. He's just looking for more coke and will do anything to get it. Don't take drugs, kids. You'll become a murdering bear.
And so that falls into the weird category of what you said earlier and how they try to make the bear in the end more of a sympathetic side of it,
Yeah, absolutely.
which is like, no, that's not we're not supposed to take out of that.
Well, yeah, at the start, and like I said, I don't think it's consistent. I think he kills people even when he's on coke. But at the start,
It's like,
yeah, at the start you don't really get that. You just think, oh, it's a bear on coke, and then they actually play into the effects of drugs a bit more throughout the movie. And when you come down and when you go up, that sort of, and him becoming a bit more of an addict, just chasing this, becoming a fiend.
now I don't know anybody or anything to do with cocaine or the effects of it itself, but I couldn't help but notice that during certain scenes when the bear was high, like it almost seemed like if the bear was high on marijuana instead of cocaine, rather than instead of a energetic woohoo type of energy, he had a very almost like a laid back stoner type esque feel, like, oh yeah man, can you pass the chips back?
Yeah, I don't think it was consistent throughout the movie at all.
Which I did
Some
thought was a
scenes he
little
was more chilled, some scenes he was
strange.
more excited. I think I have no idea, really the effects either. Maybe we'll get a doctor or a drug
that's a-
addict in here to tell us. But I thought they just wrote it to what works with the plot, if that makes sense.
it does feel very like that.
We need the
It felt-
bear to be chilled here. We need the bear to be excited here. We need him to be aggressive. So we'll just say Coke does all of these things.
If it
throughout.
does feel, yeah. Sorry, I forgot what was my previous point. What I was going to say, but
Maybe the effects of Coke on a bear is different, though. We don't know. We need to take a bear, give him Coke, and analyze him. That's the only way we can truly tell if this movie is fact or fiction.
we need to put him in what do you call them, a police investigation room,
That's exactly right.
and make sure to double shade the windows so he doesn't break through them.
Yeah. We better wrap up. We will say this movie is a guilty pleasure. It's watchable.
But I would only recommend this with a bunch of friends while intoxicated on alcoholic substances. Because if you watch this by yourself, you're just going to be questioning way, way too much about the movie's logic and how certain things are supposed to play out in real life. But it works for the sake of the movie's plot. Like, it's safe. And that was my point I was going to say earlier. My apologies.
No, it's definitely a social movie. I don't think we should be recommending anyone drinks or take substances. They do what you like. We'll say that.
Yeah,
when
do
watching
what you
this
like,
movie.
but that's the only way I would recommend it to watch that movie.
I don't know if we should be saying that, but either way, you're listening to Media Shout on Edge Radio 99.3 FM.
Hope you had a good day and see you around, folks.